Hey everyone, it's Sophia. You go through life thinking there are some lines people just won't cross, especially the ones who raised you, the ones who are supposed to be your staunchest allies. I learned the hard way that sometimes those are the very people who hand you the deepest, most cutting betrayals. This is the story of how my own family tried to shatter my dreams and what I had to do to fight back, not just for justice, but for myself. My name is Sophia Hayes, and when I was 24, I poured every ounce of my soul into creating something I believed could genuinely change lives. It was a specialized AI tool, sleek and intuitive, designed to help independent therapists. Imagine them managing everything: session notes, patient progress, appointment scheduling, all in one secure, streamlined platform. It wasn't just code to me. It was a lifeline for practitioners drowning in admin, a way to give them back time to actually help people. I called it Aura Tech Solutions. But to my parents, Richard and Eleanor, I was still just their overly ambitious daughter, the one who'd stubbornly sidestepped law school, unlike my cousins who were, in their eyes, the epitome of sensible career choices. I can still feel the chill of that exact moment when my world started to tilt on its axis. I was holed up in a busy little coffee shop in Austin, you know the kind, buzzing with freelancers and the smell of dark roast, trying to concentrate over the hiss of the espresso machine. I was sipping an iced latte, lost in debugging one final crucial algorithm tweak for Auratech, when my phone vibrated on the worn wooden table. It was my dad, Richard. "Sophia, your little project came up during brunch today," he said, his voice casual, like he was talking about the weather. My stomach gave a little lurch. "Brent Ashton, he's interested in taking it off your hands." Brent Ashton. Oh man. Even just hearing his name made a bitter taste rise in my throat. Brent was the son of my mother's old college roommate, a guy who always dressed like he was about to pitch a billion-dollar idea on Shark Tank, even if he was just grabbing a bagel. He'd already driven 2 startups straight into the ground, yet he still paraded around town with this insufferable air of being some tech visionary. To my parents, though, Brent was everything I wasn't. Credible. He had a fancy MBA from some Ivy League school, a Rolodex of investors he loved to brag about, and, apparently, a much better grasp of the business world than I, their own daughter, ever could. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice even, the clatter of cups around me suddenly fading, "Auratech isn't for sale. I've got 8 different therapy practices already signed up for the pilot launch next quarter. Things are moving." He scoffed, a sound I knew all too well, a sound that always made me feel about 10 years old. "Oh, Sophia, don't be so dramatic. You're not really running a company. You're just tinkering with code in coffee shops. Brent can make it real. He can give it a proper launch." Just tinkering. The words stung, hot and sharp. I thought of every single sleepless night I'd wrestled with complex coding problems, fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer determination. Every grant proposal I'd painstakingly written, agonizing over every word. Every rejection letter that I'd forced myself to see not as a failure, but as a lesson. All of that dismissed as mere tinkering. "The intellectual property is mine, Dad," I said, my voice firmer now, a knot tightening in my chest. "I built it from scratch. I'm not selling." But I had a sinking feeling, a cold dread creeping in, that I was already too late. The very next evening, they asked me to come over for dinner. "Just a quiet family meal, honey," Mom had said on the phone, her voice a little too bright. The moment I walked in, my heart sank. Brent Ashton was already there, lounging on their sofa like he owned the place, a smug grin plastered on his face, that look that said the deal was already done. And the worst part? My own mother, Eleanor, set a glass of chilled Chardonnay in front of me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, and murmured, "Just sign the transfer papers, sweetheart. It's for the best, really." And my dad, Richard, he raised his own glass in a toast to new beginnings, without even making eye contact with me. I felt like I was suffocating. Then my father slid a crisp white envelope across the polished dining room table. The aroma of Mom's roast chicken, usually a comfort, suddenly felt cloying. "Sophia," he began, his voice carrying that familiar tone of unwavering authority he always used when he thought he knew best. "We've discussed it, and we've decided to sell your app to Brent. He's offering $8,000, which, frankly, is quite generous considering it's still in the development phase. Just an idea, really. $8,000. I blinked, the words echoing in the sudden silence. For a moment, I genuinely thought it was some kind of twisted joke, a prank. But the serious, expectant faces of my parents and Brent's oily, self-satisfied smirk told me otherwise. This was real. You can't sell what isn't yours, I managed, my voice tight, strangled with a disbelief so profound it felt like a physical weight on my chest. You don't own Oratech. I do. Brent cut in then, his voice smooth as silk, dripping with condescension. Sophia, come on now, he said, leaning forward conspiratorially, as if we were old buddies. Your dad was just telling me about your little project. It's a cute idea, a really good starting point, but you need someone with actual experience to scale it properly. Someone who understands the market dynamics, the investment landscape. He gestured vaguely with a manicured hand. Someone like me. I turned to my mother, my eyes pleading with her, searching for some flicker of support, of understanding. Anything. She just took a delicate sip of her wine, avoiding my gaze, and then gave Brent this little approving nod. He's right, honey, she said softly, her voice gentle, which somehow made it hurt even more. You're still so young. This is a wonderful opportunity. Let someone more established take it from here. Think of it as a learning experience. They hadn't asked. They hadn't considered my opinion, my work, my dreams. They just decided. They had absolutely no clue that my little project, my cute idea, was already on the verge of signing a major B2B contract with the Summit Ridge Wellness Group, a behavioral health network spanning 3 states. They didn't know that the unique AI engine I'd painstakingly designed and refined was already outperforming established industry benchmarks across 3 critical metrics: therapist time management, billing automation accuracy, and clinical compliance reporting. To them, I was, and apparently always would be, just their kid sister, still playing around with code, not a serious entrepreneur. The legs of my chair shrieked against the tiled floor as I pushed back abruptly, the sound tearing through the strained politeness of the room. You can't sell something you never built, I said, my voice now cold, steely, all the disbelief hardening into a core of pure, unadulterated anger. I own the code. Every single line. I filed the provisional patent myself. The LLC is registered in my name. My father's face, usually so composed, darkened with a flush of anger. Don't be ungrateful, Sophia, he snapped, his voice rising. Brent is offering you a real job with his new company, with a team, with benefits. He's trying to help you. Can't you see that? Ungrateful. That word burned through me like acid. Grateful? They wanted me to be grateful that they'd casually sold out my future, my creation, my sweat and tears, for $8,000 and a handshake with a charlatan. I locked eyes with Brent, who was watching this family meltdown with a barely concealed smirk. Keep your job offer, Brent, I said, my voice dangerously quiet as I grabbed my laptop bag from the floor beside me. And if you honestly think I didn't secure my codebase, every vital algorithm, well, I dare you to try and use what you think you're getting. Then I turned and walked out. Not just out of their oppressively silent dining room, but out of the suffocatingly small version of me they had always tried to mold, always tried to keep contained. But I truly, naively underestimated just how far they were willing to go, how deep their betrayal could cut. The very next morning, I got an alert. A sinking, sickening realization dawned on me. They had accessed my old cloud backup drive, the one I'd used years ago, back when I first started coding Oratech in my tiny, cramped apartment, long before I implemented my current multi-layered security protocols. They must have remembered the password I'd foolishly shared once. They had copied everything from that outdated drive. Early design mock-ups, half-baked prototype code, even old project files from when I was still just figuring things out, scribbling ideas in notebooks. And they justified it, claiming that their parental support, the roof over my head when I was younger, somehow gave them the rights to everything I'd ever created. Within days, Brent Ashton launched his new company with a ridiculous derivative name I won't even bother repeating. He'd even used my old, outdated documents and design sketches to try and file his own provisional patents, brazenly dragging my parents into it, getting them to sign false witness statements about development timelines and who contributed what. Local tech blogs, always hungry for a new story, started buzzing about this young visionary, Brent Ashton, who was poised to disrupt the wellness industry. And my parents, in the photos accompanying those articles, they were beaming, practically glowing with pride for him. It was like a knife twisting in my gut every time I saw it. But Brent, in his arrogance and haste, made a catastrophic, fatal mistake. He genuinely thought that the jumbled collection of old files he'd stolen from my backup drive was the core of Oratech. He thought he had the crown jewels. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly comprehend, was that the true algorithms, the intricate beating heart of my system, the real innovation, was safely encrypted, triple-locked, and hidden away in secure, anonymous cloud storage, far, far beyond his clumsy reach. He had a cheap imitation, a hollow shell. I spent the next few days in a blur of cold fury and focused determination. I felt like I was moving through a thick fog, the pain of their betrayal, a constant ache in my chest. But underneath it, a different kind of fire was starting to burn. I gathered everything I needed, every line of my actual current code, every signed contract with my pilot program partners, every email thread where I'd meticulously outlined my real vision for Oratech. When I made my move, I vowed it wouldn't just be a counterattack, it would be devastating. I meticulously backed up every patent application, every source file, every non-disclosure agreement. Then I made one very important phone call, a call to Alana Vance. Alana was one of the most feared, most respected intellectual property lawyers in Silicon Valley, a woman notorious for her razor-sharp intellect and her ruthless efficiency in exposing and dismantling tech fraud. Her reputation preceded her. She didn't suffer fools, and she certainly didn't lose cases. They really thought they could take your entire company for $8,000? Alana said, a single eyebrow arched during our first meeting in her minimalist steel and glass office overlooking the city. She was flipping through the meticulously organized evidence I'd brought, printouts, USB drives, timelines, with an unnerving calmness. The air in her office crackled with a quiet intensity. They thought I was just a girl with a little side project, something I was tinkering with. I replied, my voice steady, mirroring her composure, though inside, my nerves were screaming. Alana's expression sharpened, and a small, almost predatory smirk touched her lips. Well then, Sophia, she said, her eyes glinting, let's show them exactly what a girl with a side project can do. I didn't know it then, not fully, but that single meeting in Alana Vance's office had set off a chain of events that would send shockwaves through the local tech world and completely, irrevocably unravel Brent Ashton and his stolen dream. Because true innovation, the kind that actually changes things, doesn't come from clumsily copying lines of code you don't even remotely understand. It comes from knowing every single line, every intricate sequence, every pulse and heartbeat of your own creation. And I knew Oratech better than anyone on this planet. The next phase of my plan, or rather, the inevitable consequence of Brent's theft, started with a text message that pinged on my phone about 2 weeks later. It was from my old college friend, Chloe. She now worked in IT at Summit Ridge Wellness Group, one of the very clinics that had been eagerly lined up for my actual Oratech pilot program. The text read, Sophia, you seriously need to see this. Myers Tech, or whatever Brent's calling it, just crashed and burned, hard, during their big live demo here at Summit Ridge. A slow, grim smile spread across my face. I didn't even need Chloe to tell me the details. I already knew exactly what had happened. You see, I had built a very specific, very discreet failsafe deep into the core architecture of Oratech. It was a multi-layer authentication protocol, a sort of digital tripwire, that was designed to remain completely dormant, invisible during any kind of superficial testing, sandbox environments, or small-scale demos with limited datasets. In those scenarios, everything would appear to run smoothly, flawlessly even. But the moment the platform attempted to go live, to deploy at full scale with real-time data streams and multiple user access points, the kind of deployment Brent was attempting at Summit Ridge, without my unique master developer key, the entire system was engineered to collapse. Spectacularly. So 2 agonizing weeks after Brent's smug announcement and my parents' public endorsement of his genius, he held his grand unveiling event at Summit Ridge Wellness Group's main conference hall. the local tech media showed up in force, eager for a success story. A handful of angel investors, lured by Brent's smooth talk and my parents' social connections, packed the back rows looking expectant. And my parents, Richard and Eleanor, were there, front and center, practically glowing with vicarious pride, my mother dabbing her eyes. And I was there too, tucked away in a shadowed back seat, wearing oversized, non-prescription glasses and a nondescript dark blazer I'd bought just for the occasion, a silent observer in the unfolding drama. Just watching. Waiting. Brent strutted onto the small stage, practically preening, basking in the premature applause. He launched into his presentation with the overconfident bluster of someone who truly believed he'd written every line of code himself. Today, he boomed, his voice amplified by the microphone, echoing slightly in the packed room. Myers Tech redefines digital health. Today, we usher in a new era of efficiency and insight. And then it started. At first, it was just a flicker on the main presentation screen behind him, a tiny, almost imperceptible glitch in the displayed interface. Then, one of the monitors displaying a simulated patient dashboard flashed red for a split second before returning to normal. Small visual stutters began to ripple across the other screens. Brent, mid-sentence, faltered for a moment, a tiny bead of sweat appearing on his forehead, but he tried to power through, his voice a little too loud now. The small glitches rapidly escalated into full-scale system failures. Error messages, stark and brutal, began to pop up, one after another, across all displays. Primary authentication key missing. Developer ID required S. Hayes. Unauthorized system initialization. Brent froze. His carefully rehearsed speech died on his lips. He fumbled frantically with the keyboard, his face starting to pale. He tried restarting the main application. He tried to manually override the failsafe, his fingers flying clumsily. Nothing worked. Each command he typed seemed to trigger more damage, more damning error messages. Unauthorized access detected. System lockdown initiated. Contact Sophia Hayes for credential verification and system recovery. The auditorium, once buzzing with anticipation, fell into a stunned, heavy silence. You could hear a pin drop. Investors in the back rows leaned in, whispering urgently to each other, their expressions shifting from interest to concern, then to outright alarm. The Summit Ridge Clinic staff exchanged uneasy, then critical looks. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, their faces, which had been alight with pride just moments before, turned ashen, their smiles frozen, and then slowly collapsing into bewilderment and dawning horror. And Brent, he just stood there, center stage, under the harsh glare of the spotlights, completely stripped of his illusion of competence. The carefully constructed facade of the tech visionary was crumbling before everyone's eyes, revealing the panicked, inept thief underneath. He was realizing, far, far too late, that he was never, ever the genius in the room. He was just a fraud who had catastrophically underestimated the quiet girl who had actually built the code. And honestly, this was only the beginning of his public unraveling. The room was no longer silent. It was buzzing with hushed, frantic whispers. Investors were no longer just shifting uneasily. Some were already discreetly tapping on their phones, no doubt pulling up Brent's flimsy prospectus. Clinic directors, the ones who were supposed to be impressed into signing lucrative contracts, were now exchanging sharp, worried glances, probably calculating potential damages and reputational harm. My parents' expressions had twisted further, pride completely drained away, replaced by a volatile cocktail of bewilderment, anger, and a dawning, terrible understanding. Brent, meanwhile, was stammering, mumbling some flimsy, incoherent excuse about a minor technical hiccup, a server glitch, his voice cracking under the pressure. Then I stood up, calmly, deliberately. The subtle rustle of my blazer seemed incredibly loud in the tense room. I walked slowly, purposefully from the shadowed back row towards the front of the room, my heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "Mr. Ashton," I said, my voice clear, cutting through the nervous tension like a freshly sharpened blade. It carried easily, without a microphone. "Are you perhaps having a little trouble operating my platform?" Brent froze mid-stammer, his jaw dropping. His carefully cultivated smugness completely collapsed, replaced by a raw, unadulterated panic as he recognized me. I slowly, deliberately removed the oversized glasses, letting them hang from my fingers. "Maybe I can help," I continued, my tone even, almost conversational, completely unbothered by the 100 pairs of eyes now fixed on me. After all, I designed and built every single function of that system myself, from the ground up. Sophia, my dad choked out, half rising from his seat in the front row, his face turning a deep, alarming shade of crimson, somewhere between utter disbelief and rapidly escalating fear. My mother just stared, her hand flying to her mouth. I didn't even glance in their direction. Instead, I calmly pulled my own sleek laptop from my tote bag, walked directly to the projector, and plugged it in. The whole room watched, rapt. In under 30 seconds, the chaotic, crashing error screens Brent had been wrestling with vanished, replaced by the fully operational, elegantly designed interface of Auratech Solutions. My Auratech Solutions, the one I'd spent the last 3 grueling years of my life perfecting. The audience watched in what I can only describe as stunned silence as I moved through a concise, flawless live demo. I showcased the real-time analytics, the intelligent therapist load balancing features, the predictive appointment projection modules, advanced functionalities Brent probably didn't even know existed because they weren't in those old stolen files. This, I said coolly, turning to address the room, my voice resonating with quiet confidence, is the real Auratech Solutions system. The one Mr. Ashton here attempted to pass off as his own creation. The one he and his associates tried to purchase from me for the grand sum of $8,000. Gasps, sharp and audible, rippled across the rows of investors and clinic staff. I saw a few people physically recoil, but I wasn't done. Oh no, I was far from done. I projected key pieces of evidence onto the large display behind me, one by one. Time-stamped design files from years back. Signed pilot program contracts with other clinics, clearly predating Brent's launch. Registered source code entries with the Copyright Office, all in my name, with creation dates that left no room for doubt. Undeniable, irrefutable proof of my authorship, my ownership. And finally, I said, my voice dropping slightly, clicking open one last critical file. Here's a copy of the cease and desist notice that was delivered to Mr. Ashton's legal team this morning. It will be followed shortly by a federal lawsuit for intellectual property theft, copyright infringement, and, well, a few other rather serious charges. Brent lurched forward, his face blotchy with a mixture of rage and terror. She's making this all up, he yelled, his voice hoarse. Her parents gave me the rights. They signed documents. That's when Alana Vance, my attorney, stood gracefully from her seat in the front row, where she'd been observing the entire debacle with a look of serene, almost lethal calm. She was holding a sleek leather portfolio. Actually, Mr. Ashton, they didn't, Alana said, her voice cool and precise, sharp as a shard of ice, yet carrying to every corner of the room. Miss Hayes's patents and copyrights for Auratech Solutions were filed and approved well before your little scheme was even conceived. She paused, letting her words sink in, then crossed her arms, her expression unflinching. Perhaps you'd care to explain to this room, and subsequently to a judge, how you acquired proprietary data, trade secrets, and copyrighted code belonging solely and exclusively to Sophia Hayes. And just like that, with Alana's devastatingly calm pronouncement, the room, which had been teetering on the edge of chaos, completely belonged to me. The eruption was instantaneous. Investors, their faces grim, bolted for the exits, phones already clamped to their ears, no doubt frantically calling their banks to cancel funding agreements and cut their losses in real time. Clinic directors huddled together in tight, anxious knots, whispering urgently about liability, due diligence failures, and the potential legal exposure of being associated with such blatant fraud. Journalists, sensing a major scandal, surged forward, cameras flashing, microphones thrust towards Brent, who stood frozen in place, pale, trembling, visibly unraveling under the onslaught of questions and accusations. My mother, Eleanor, rushed towards me then, not with concern for me, but with a face contorted in anger and embarrassment. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly tight. "Sophia, how could you?" she hissed, her voice shaking. "How could you humiliate us like this, in front of everyone? Brent was only trying to help you. He was giving you a chance." I gently but firmly pulled my arm away from her grasp. The scent of her expensive perfume, usually so familiar, now seemed alien. "No, Mom," I said, my voice quiet but unwavering, meeting her furious gaze. He wasn't trying to help me, he was trying to steal from me. And you let him. You encouraged him. Because you never, not for one single moment, believed that I, your daughter, was capable enough on my own. My father, Richard, fumbled for words, his face a mask of confusion and dawning shame. We just wanted to protect you, Sophia, from disappointment. I met his eyes, my gaze steady, unblinking. Protect me from what, Dad? From building something valuable? From succeeding without your intervention, without your approval? He opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. You're just a girl, he stammered, the old dismissive phrase hanging in the air. This girl, I finished for him, my voice calm and clear, built a scalable, innovative healthcare platform that, even before this debacle, was already being valued in the 7 figures by industry experts. The very same platform your friend's son, Brent, tried to swipe for less than the cost of a beat-up used smartphone. Then I turned to the stunned crowd, to the remaining investors, the clinic staff, the journalists still scribbling furiously. They were all still watching, captivated. My name is Sophia Hayes, I announced, my voice ringing with a newfound strength I didn't even realize I possessed until that moment. I am the founder and CEO of Oratech Solutions, and under my leadership, my company is already on track to redefine digital care management, starting right here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. This is what real innovation looks like. This is what happens when you don't overlook or try to silence the one who is actually building it. The aftermath came fast, and for Brent Ashton, it was absolutely ruthless. His handful of investors vanished literally overnight, their money pulled faster than he could blink. His already shaky credibility in Austin's competitive startup scene completely disintegrated. Poof, gone. And with Alana Vance leading the charge on an airtight, meticulously prepared IP theft case, he wasn't just publicly disgraced. He was legally cornered, facing a mountain of evidence and the prospect of ruinous financial penalties, not to mention potential criminal charges. And me, I finally walked out of that conference room, head held high, not as someone's underestimated daughter, not as the girl tinkering with code, but as Sophia Hayes, CEO, the woman they never, ever saw coming. As for my parents, Richard and Eleanor, well, they tried. Oh, how they tried to revise the narrative in the weeks and months that followed. Suddenly, in their retelling, they were the ones who'd always been subtly guiding me, the ones who'd always known I had this potential, the ones who were just looking out for my best interests by encouraging a con man to steal my life's work. The mental gymnastics were astounding. But the truth, the raw, ugly truth of their betrayal, couldn't be undone, couldn't be glossed over with tearful apologies and selective memories. How could I ever truly trust the people who had been willing to sell off my vision, my future, for less than a month's rent in this city? The wound was too deep. 6 months later, I stood on a very different stage, a much larger one. This time, it was as the keynote speaker at Oratech Solutions' official funding announcement. We had just closed a $50 million Series A funding round, led by one of the most prestigious venture capital firms in the country. Our pilot program results hadn't just been good, they had exceeded even my wildest, most optimistic projections. A 48% reduction in patient intake delays at participating clinics, a 41% measurable improvement in clinic resource utilization, and a predictive accuracy for future care demands that bordered on flawless. The real deal. The auditorium, packed with genuine investors, healthcare professionals, and supportive members of the tech community, exploded in applause. As I spoke about the future of Oratech, about our vision for accessible and intelligent healthcare solutions, I spotted them. My parents. Seated near the very back row, almost hidden in the shadows. Their expressions were a confusing, painful swirl of regret, undeniable pride, and something else, something unspoken and heavy. They had started messaging me again, of course. Tentative emails, voicemails left late at night, filled with words about how incredibly proud they were, how they always believed I would do something special, something amazing. But their pride, I realized with a pang of sadness, wasn't rooted in genuine, unconditional love or belief in me. It was anchored firmly to my success, a success I had built not because of them, but in spite of them, a success they now wanted to bask in the reflected glory of. After the event, as I was shaking hands and talking with well-wishers, they approached me. Slower this time, smaller somehow, without their usual air of confident authority. "Sophia, sweetheart," my mother began, her voice soft, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. "We are so, so sorry. We didn't mean, we never understood." I raised my hand gently, stopping her. "I know you're sorry now, Mom," I said, my voice equally quiet but firm. There was no anger left, just a kind of weary clarity. "But being sorry because I proved you wrong, because I'm successful, isn't the same as believing in me before I did. It's not the same as supporting me when I had nothing but an idea and a laptop." My father stepped in then, his voice cracking slightly. Can't we just move past all this, Sophia? We're family. Families make mistakes." I looked at them, really looked at them for a long, searching moment. Two people I had loved unconditionally, who I still, on some complicated level, loved. "Family supports, Dad," I said quietly, the words costing me more than they knew. "Family uplifts. Family doesn't sell their daughter's life's work, her dream, to a stranger for a pittance. You picked Brent. You picked him because deep down, you couldn't imagine your own daughter being capable enough, being enough on her own." I reached into the pocket of my blazer and pulled out two small, sleek cards. Not business cards, not exactly. Just 3 words printed cleanly, elegantly across the front of each. "Guest pass. Back row." I handed one to each of them. "If you want to meet with me," I said, pausing just long enough for the words to land, my gaze steady, "you can schedule an appointment through my office, like any other business contact." Then I turned and walked away, towards the group of investors and partners who were waiting to congratulate me. As I did, I heard my mother begin to cry softly behind me, a broken, mournful sound. A small residual part of me, the daughter part, hesitated, wanted to look back, to offer some kind of comfort, to extend grace, to pretend like everything could somehow be mended and made whole again. But I didn't, because I knew better now. Sometimes success isn't about proving other people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were right all along. Right to believe in your vision, right to fight for it, especially when no one else did. Today, Auratech Solutions is transforming digital healthcare infrastructure across the country, and we're even quietly expanding into international partnerships. We're making a real difference. And Brent Ashton? He's blacklisted across every major venture network on the West Coast and probably beyond. His name is now a whispered warning in startup circles, a cautionary tale about arrogance and theft. And that $8,000 check they once tried to use to buy my entire company, my soul, I had it framed. It hangs directly behind my desk in my office at Auratech headquarters. It's not a monument to spite, not really. It's a reminder of truth. Your worth is never, ever defined by someone else's insultingly low price tag. It's defined by what you know deep in your bones, that you can create, what you can build, and what you are willing to defend. Even when the whole world, or just the people closest to you, tells you to sit down, be quiet, and stay small. There will always be people who underestimate you, people who will mock your ambition, question your skills, or try to co-opt your vision and claim it as their own. It's a hard truth, but if you protect what's yours fiercely, relentlessly, with everything you've got, then your success won't just be sweet, oh man, it will be absolutely unshakable. So the next time someone tries to tell you you're just a girl, or just a dreamer, or just anything at all that makes you feel less than, remember this. The people who dismiss you, who try to diminish you, they are not your metric. They don't get to define your value. Only you do. As for my parents, Richard and Eleanor, they still send the occasional message. Cards on birthdays, awkward texts on holidays. They still talk about forgiveness, about rebuilding, about those stilted family dinners we used to have. Maybe one day, far down the road, we'll find a way to reconnect, to build something new from the rubble. But if we do, it won't be on the terms they once tried to force on me, not anymore. It'll be on my terms. Always mine. It'll be as Sophia Hayes, the woman who built her own damn empire from scratch, not as the underestimated daughter they once so carelessly dismissed. Because you know what? I'm not just a girl behind a keyboard anymore. I'm the founder and CEO of a company that's reshaping the landscape of digital healthcare. And no one, not Brent, not my parents, not anyone, will ever, ever take that kind of power, my power away from me again. If any part of my story, this roller coaster, resonated with you, maybe something you've been through or a fear you're facing, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, share your own story, your setbacks, or that amazing aha moment when you chose to believe in yourself, even when it was hard. Every word of encouragement, every shared experience, it really does remind me, and hopefully you too, why standing firm in your truth matters so much. It wasn't easy, walking away from the people who were supposed to believe in me first, who were supposed to be my unconditional support. But I chose myself, I chose my dream. And if you ever find yourself in a similar place, feeling that pressure to shrink, I truly hope you choose you too. Trust your vision, protect your work, and never ever let anyone, even family, tell you what you're worth. You're not just anything. You are powerful, you are capable, you are absolutely enough. And I'm rooting for you, just like I finally learned to root for myself. Thanks for listening. And hey, if you want to hear more stories like this about fighting back and finding your way, make sure to subscribe. And if this story touched you, consider hitting that super thanks button. It's a way to support the channel and helps us keep sharing these journeys of resilience.